Good evening. Welcome back to another episode of Please Call Me Crazy, brought to you by Free People Radio, powered by our favorite sponsor, TireGet.com. That's TireGet.com. You have to buy tires from somebody. You might as well buy them from us. Help fund the movement, help support the movement. We believe in the freedom of movement, and that's exactly what the establishment wants to take from you now. I'm your host, Royce White, here in the belly of the beast, Minneapolis, Minnesota. And today we have another incredible HEBROES edition of Please Call Me Crazy, episode 205. And we have a special guest, another special guest. The last special guest we had was a quite memorable episode. I thought it was good, Marissa Simonetti. So we got the great Professor Penn in the studio here.
Good evening to you. Good evening.
And
Thank
we have
you.
an even more special guest in the studio today, fresh off of the RNC convention in Milwaukee. And we talked on the phone and said, if you make a trip to the Midwest, you gotta come on up the road and visit Free People Radio. The great Mo Bannon is in studio today.
Thank you both for having me.
Yes, Mo Bannon, welcome to Free People Radio, and Please Call Me Crazy. And shout out to the whole War Room posse out there for tuning in. Shout out to Grace Chong. I feel like if Grace Chong was here, we'd have the whole band.
Stacked.
I mean, I tried to get her, but she left too early
busy
this morning.
Oh, okay. But thanks for being here. I appreciate it. It's fun to have you in studio. And yeah, I mean, you're the princess of the MAGA movement, yeah, of the War Room posse. You know,
That's not the first time
you're the
he
queen.
said that.
You're the queen bee. You know, you're the heir apparent, right?
Yeah.
Coming off of one of the most controversial couple of weeks in American history and the history of American politics, let's say. And it all started with your dad being hauled off to prison unjustly. Free Steve Bannon. We always got to remind people to not forget about Steve. We had Peter Navarro come home last week. That was incredible.
And he got a standing ovation. He got a standing ovation at the RNC.
Did he?
Yeah, as soon as he came out on the stage to give his speech, everyone was standing up. I mean, it honestly brought me to tears.
Yeah, amen. And Peter Navarro is as much of a hitter as it gets. You know, shout out to Peter Navarro. Happy you're home. Can't wait to catch up and see you host War Room. He hosted, didn't he?
He did.
I know
you were in debate.
It.
You were in debate prep, so he hosted Thursday morning, and then he promoted his book, The New MAGA Deal, on Wednesday as soon as he hit the ground in Milwaukee, and then also yesterday. So he was very busy.
Yeah. And give us a quick update on Steve. Everybody wants to hear how Steve's doing. Turn the mic towards you just a little bit. Yeah, down. There you go.
He's doing good. I mean, he's keeping himself busy in there reading. Nothing out of the ordinary.
Yeah.
And he doesn't get internet in there, so you have to copy and paste every article you want to send him into the Bureau of Prisons email system, and it takes about 90 minutes each way to get an email to him. So Saturday, when President Trump was shot at, I emailed him, and like 4 hours later is when I finally got an email back from him.
Yeah. So a little bit of a lag time there.
It is, especially because BOP has to read all the emails, and I'm pretty sure there are other eyes on, just given who he is.
Of course.
That's why it's taking longer.
Yeah, of course. And I'm sure he's that's tough. That's probably one of the toughest parts, because he's so jacked into what's happening currently. You know, you could go to prison and do jail time. I mean, there's a lot of people that go to prison and do jail time, but some people don't have a life that's so predicated around what's happening moment by moment, you know, and I'm sure it's just eating him up to get that lag and all the news, especially that news.
Well, I mean, he can watch the news on TV in there,
right,
but emailing, to communicate out. And then also if something happens and there's a lockdown, you don't know, and you're wondering why you don't get an email like a normal time of day. So I usually get an email from him in the morning. He goes first thing and sends an email. And then when I don't hear from him, it makes you wonder like what's going on.
Yeah.
But so yesterday I thought there was a lockdown in the prison. It just happened to be I wasn't getting an email first yesterday. So it was all good.
Yeah, but our thoughts and prayers are with Steve, and it can't be overstated how important Steve is to the movement. obviously, why they threw him in prison in the first place, and Navarro as well, and many more of us are on the chopping block probably if we don't win. And that's a reality we all got to face. I'm certainly up in the batter deck as well here in Minnesota, and Professor Penn, you may be as well. I mean, anybody, all of us are in danger. Nobody's safe, and it's funny. I was thinking back. You know, you're the first person to text me to tell me that the president was shot at. Mo, you were the first one to text me.
I didn't realize that.
Yes, you were the first one to text me. I'm going up the elevator. I had just got to the hotel there in Anaheim, getting ready for the big three. There's always a madhouse when you first arrive, checking in and getting organized with the team, situated practice, media, and photo shoots that haven't been, all kinds of stuff. So it's a madhouse. And I get a text from Mo, and she's like, Donald Trump just got shot at the rally. And my first instinct was, no way. I mean, this has to be a mix-up. You know, there's just no way that actually happened. And the reason why I had that sort of disbelief was because I had just spoken in a place out here called Chanhassen. That's where I was, right? Chanhassen.
Yes, sir.
For the town hall. No. We just did Chanhassen. I was in St. Cloud the week before.
Right.
I was in St. Cloud, and a woman asked me if Secret Service could keep Donald Trump safe. And there's like a 2-minute clip that I'm going to post on social media with the subtitles of me just explaining that nobody's safe. And it's not as easy to protect somebody as people may think. And it's real easy. It's not real easy. We'll talk about that a little bit and what you think about what happened. But nobody's untouchable. Let's just say that. That's a reality of life, no matter who you are. Obviously, even the president of the United States. So I go on this whole 2-minute speech, and I say at the end, you know, the truth of the matter is only God can keep him safe, and if he, you know, regardless of what happened, he's already won, and if they kill him, he still wins. You know, so it was crazy when you text me that. I'm just like, no way. I mean, I was just talking about it. And when you say stuff like that, you don't really think 2 days from now, 48 hours from now is going to be the time. Just like I'm sure he had conversations, and they have conversations every day in his team, around his team, about his security and the dangers and the temperature or the rhetoric and what that means. You don't think today is going to be the day. You know, I mean, he speaks every day. Nobody wakes up and goes, today's going to be the day. Just like me going to the debate even. And any one of us who are running for office now, or a public figure, especially in a movement as controversial as ours, runs the risk of some crazy, pulling out a knife or a gun and trying to take us out. You never think today is going to be the day, really. I mean, that's just insane. So what do you think? I mean, you're as inside as they get. You know, you saw what happened. What do you make of everything that went on that day?
Well, actually, so me being the first person to text you that, someone else, one of my other friends, was the first person to text me because I happened to be in a different room than my phones and where I had the rally streaming. So I saw it on my Apple Watch, and I was like, there's no way he got shot at. So I had to go back and rewind the live stream, and I saw it, and I emailed my dad right away, but I honestly thought, my dad has been saying this for 2 years.
Yeah.
He's been saying that the administrative state and the deep state do not want Donald Trump back in office,
right.
that they will not stop until they make sure that he cannot be back in office, and he can't be back in office if he's dead.
Yeah.
So,
I
mean, they're going to stoop to any means necessary, and we saw that on Saturday.
Yeah.
So, I'm very grateful that he happened to have that chart up and tilted his head to the side.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, we would have seen his head being blown off on national television.
100%. Yeah, and the round was 2-2-3, right? 2-2-3 round would have definitely blown a hole in his head right there on national television. And an entire generation of people would have been scared into political,
submission.
Political submission, just like with Kennedy.
63.
And you'd never want to go outside again. I mean, you go to a rally to support a candidate that you love.
Right.
And that you believe in. And this happens, you're not going to want to go anywhere.
Right.
We talked a lot about on this podcast, so I'll bring you into something, because I was alive in 63, as was your father. So the people that are in the boomer generation, we know what those four martyrs, JFK, RFK, Malcolm X and Martin Luther King killed in, succession, what it did to the hopefulness of that generation, because that was the second turning after the war, and people were still very hopeful, we were so hopeful and so trusting when we believed the magic bullet theory. That you got to have a lot of faith in your government to believe that kind of theory. Theory was a theory, like putting leeches on people. We believed it.
And I got a question for you, right, along that line. Is it that people had a lot of trust, or we look in retrospect, was conspiracy theory, quote unquote, was conspiracy theory as popular then as it is now, given the constraints of media and social media and internet and communication, television even? I mean, back then you guys only had, 10 television channels?
Three.
See, I was going high there.
The narrative was very easy to control,
right.
Number one.
But I'm saying in the streets, behind the scenes, or like in households, were conspiracy theories about government being corrupt even a thing at that juncture?
It was for a small group of people who were branded as being dangerous.
Radicals.
No different than today.
Right. But now there's so many more of us.
Both thanks to the media and just thanks to the preponderance
of corruption.
Because if you look back and you look at it over 100-year time frame, there's always been corruption. But the accelerating corruption and the scope of the corruption and the pervasiveness of the corruption is actually coterminous with the decline in faith. There was boundaries, people had spiritual boundaries.
Yeah.
There was some spiritual boundary on everyone's personal behavior, which has been removed. And of course, we financialized our economy. That was another thing. Did not exist before 1963. That's something that just started with President Nixon.
Yeah.
So people were living more humbly. They were not as acquisitive in terms of, I'm not saying we didn't have our Midases. They were seeking, but it was about family and church and country. It was a completely different culture. It was the Republican culture. The Republicanism of the founding of the country was still much more prevalent than it is today. Remember, in 1963, we were only into the democratic liberal order for, 45, 55? You're talking
10 years.
10
15
plus,
years.
there's 18 years.
Yeah.
18 years. 18 years.
Yeah, but I say 10 because the first 3 to 5 years of any big shift in
jump ball.
It's jump ball.
Right.
Yeah. And once it settles in, then you start the clock. But so and I'm going back to Mo here. Are you saying that this shooting was not coincidental? It was not some random event? See, my theory is, and I want to hear what you think too, but my theory is always a little bit more leaning that the government is in on it. So we live with that memory in the Black community, like Martin Luther King, Malcolm. Now we go back and read the declassified documents. We know that the government had a hand in both assassinations, first order. So my mind always goes to the government's very big, very powerful, very good at trying to kill people, but they also have admitted that they're very good at creating the circumstance for assassination as well. What should we make? What's your take on? Was this coordinated, or was this winding up a community through rhetoric, continuous rhetoric, and watching it play out, and then having a lapse of judgment or incompetence or, let's say, nefariousness on the day from the security team? Where are you at on?
I think it's a little bit of both. There was, in my opinion, gross negligence when it comes to the security. Like, there should have been no reason. You see video footage of the shooter pacing around the ladder. You had people pointing to him that he was up there. The head of the Secret Service says she doesn't need to resign. This is what happens when you have a DEI hire in that position, someone not qualified. But I don't think it's a coincidence. I think that the deep state wanted Donald Trump not to be able to be elected come November.
Mm-hmm.
This is his last rally before the RNC, when he's supposed to, the national convention, when he is supposed to be there. It was put out, as a rumor that he potentially could have named his VP then, because he had to legally name the VP pick by Monday afternoon. you're going to take the president out on national television before he can announce his VP. And it puts the party in turmoil. So yeah, I know no conspiracies, no coincidences, but
that seems like a pretty big coincidence. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I would agree. And not only that, it's my read of it that any assassinations, political assassinations that happen now, they're not going to be military guys. They're not going to be Lee Harvey Oswalds, right? I mean, that would be the deep state that exists, the security and the intelligence community that exists, the shadow government that exists, and we all know it exists. And to say that there isn't a government behind the government is just grossly immature and naive. You're lying. Either you're lying or you just can't handle the truth.
Lying to yourself.
You're lying to yourself. So, that exists. They have that scope of history. They're not going to run a military person out there to do these assassinations. They're going to, MK Ultra, incentivize some kid just like this who's 20 years old, who nobody's going to ask questions about. It's very easy to say, hey, this 20-year-old was just bullied in high school at 15, and this is just severe mental illness going astray. And that's actually, when you look at the decay of, the common mental health of the American population, that's one of the built-in scapegoats of having a culture that declines into crazy, right? It's because anybody can be your shit. It's like the Matrix, right? It's like Agent Smith. It's like anybody can be an agent. Right. Because everybody's crazy. Maybe I should change the name of the podcast. I feel like I'm in on the psyop a little bit with the police called me crazy.
Well, the lone gunman theory is supposed to give the populace some comfort that there's not a conspiracy.
Right.
But the culture, even if it generated a lone gunman, even if it generates a lone gunman killing a woman in a home, a husband killing a wife, or any kind of shooting that's going on, is a indicator of intense mental illness and a breakdown of the fabric of the culture that I want to live in.
Yeah. Go.
Well, we need to get to the bottom, and I've said this every time there has been a shooting. We need to get to the bottom of why they're doing this. No sane person is going to go and do a school shooting, mass shooting, try and assassinate the president. You need to fix the underlying condition, which is mental health in this country, and not continue to go after gun rights, which is what the left likes to do every time there is a shooting.
Yeah, that's their scapegoat.
Except for this one. They don't want.
They didn't say.
And they don't want.
That's a good point.
They didn't say anything about the gun that was
how
used.
How could the guy miss? They were mad that the guy missed. Was all over social media.
They're brazen.
But I think this brings up a very important theme, which goes back to Please Call Me Crazy, which is mental illness is a political
weapon.
Well, it's just political.
Well, yeah, that for sure.
It speaks to our politics.
But it seems like a weapon. I mean, that's kind of the the whole country is so crazy. This is what I said, and I go back to policing. And I'll go back to George Floyd for a moment just as a reference point, but people didn't really understand what I was saying about George Floyd. But this is the cultural signal from that whole situation is police are a scapegoat. Police have been scapegoated by a corporation, a corporate community, as Steve would call it, the permanent political class, the managerial elite, right? This group of people has made a calculation about the decline of our society and the decay of people's mental health, and then they throw that all on the police, which makes it so duplicitous that when police make mistakes or when they have bad outcomes out there in the streets, that they go, it's all on you guys. It's like have the people descend on the police precinct. That's why when I led protests to after George Floyd died, not one of them was at the police precinct. I'm like, how unfair is that? First of all, your elites have cast all of the cultural decay onto the cops. And then all of you people, citizens, you participated in it. And then you want to throw it on the cops too. It's like, well, hold on. This is a racket. Now, let me circle you back around to what's really going on here. Money has rotted out our culture psychologically and spiritually and otherwise. So, but the danger is anybody can be a scapegoat now. I mean, I can't even talk about how pervasive that can be. The new norm is so crazy. How do you keep anybody safe anymore with that being You know what I mean? I mean,
well, that's the whole point, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the whole point, is to create that kind of terror, that kind of underlying anxiety, because it makes people much easier to control.
For sure.
I mean, that's the whole. I mean, we could just as easily generate a society of, maybe not. It's probably easier to generate a society of love. Depends on education.
Yeah.
Who's teaching the kids and what they're
doubt.
teaching. I got to just say something before I forget.
Okay.
We had this debate last night. I'm going to tell you a story. So there was about 100 people in the room, maybe. No, there was some supporters for, they call him Ukraine Joe now. I think that's hilarious. Ukraine Joe. But we had a lot of Royce White supporters there. And the people know that I'm involved with Royce, and they know me from my own podcast and for HEBROES, this forum. And people were walking up and shaking my hand, and a very elderly woman walked up to me with a cane. She was kind of gnarled up. She had a pretty serious disease condition. Of course, I didn't ask her.
Mm-hmm.
And she said she wanted to meet me and shook my hand. She said she was a friend of Royce, and she was like 80 years old. I'm thinking, what has this woman got to do with Royce? So I said, well, how do you know Royce? She goes, well, I taught him French in 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, 8th grade. I said, you did? I said, you remember him? She said, oh, I'm a big Royce White supporter. If you think about the implication for all these people that want to put this aspersions on Royce, when an 80-year-old French teacher who really has a hard time getting around comes to give just to be there with you.
Yeah.
I mean, there's endorsements. No, that's the endorsement. Yeah. The endorsement of your character and who you are.
Shout out to Susan Fund. Susan Fund and Bob, they're a great couple, supporters of mine. My French teacher, she was my French teacher at 2 different schools in the St. Paul public school system. And, you asked her, should I speak French to Royce? And what did she say? Well,
because my mother, my
I was going to say, can you remember your
No, this is hilarious. Because my mother is fluent in French, and my mother is a unrepentant globalist. And my middle name is Lawrence, which I should be called Larry, but no, Laurence. It's with a U. And so I was in French from the beginning. I didn't even know, because we never talked about it. So I said to the teacher, I said, oh, wow, can I speak French? I should. No, don't go there.
Won't work.
It's not going to work, which is even a double endorsement of your character, because even though you sucked as a French student, she saw who you were as a person.
Poetic justice.
It is really wonderful.
It really is. Yeah.
I took French
that
in
made
school
the whole debate
in college, and I suck at it.
French is not an easy language. No. You know what? It's actually funny that you bring that up. When little Roy started school, my oldest son, we were living in Canada. We were living in Ontario, and the only school in our district, in our neighborhood, was a French immersion school. And I mean, when I say French immersion, it was real French immersion. I mean, they were speaking French.
More French than English.
More French than English, all French. And so, for a while, we thought that he was dyslexic, because he had trouble his first 2 years. He had trouble reading, and he had trouble with writing and a lot of little, different school things. But then I realized that French is it's not an easy language. It's out of the romantic language. It's the weirdest one. And I don't really trust the French, but I love my French teacher. I'll say that. Yeah. But you took Spanish and French.
No, I took French.
Oh, you took French.
So when I grew up, I spoke Spanish fluently until like 5, from probably 3 to 5. So I'd talk in Spanish and then turn around to my mom and translate whatever I was speaking in Spanish and English for her. And then I lost it, and I took French. Stupidly, I took French in high school. I grew up in Southern California.
Right.
But I took French in high school. Yeah. And then in college, when we had to take language tests, I said, let me see if I can test out a French 1. Once again, stupidly did that. And I got into French 2.
Oh, good for you.
And then like French in film, and then French in military history. And I struggled the entire 4 semesters in college.
Yeah. What? Tell me. Let's go back a little bit. Let's do a little Mo Bannon story.
Okay.
Oh my. So you grew up in California, right? Where we were close, not where we were, but close to.
Like an hour.
What's it called again? It's
Manhattan
Beach. Okay, so you grew up in Manhattan Beach.
It's like an hour with traffic.
Okay, and in high school you played
volleyball. I played volleyball from the 4th grade through college.
Okay, volleyball, and you were actually a very good volleyball player at West Point.
I was.
Yeah, I saw an ESPN article of you playing volleyball at West Point.
Yep.
So we got an athlete in the building. I respect that off the top. West Point. What was West Point like? You know what's funny? My mom wanted me to go to West Point. My mom's an interesting character. She always, she wanted me to go to St. Thomas Academy. St. Thomas Academy is a Catholic private military all boys school here in the Twin Cities, St. Paul, but in Twin Cities. And she just wanted me to go there for some reason when I was young. I didn't end up going there. My little brother did for 2 years, but the basketball was terrible, so we transferred him back to my alma mater, Hopkins. But she wanted me to go to St. Thomas. She wanted me to go to West Point. And I remember when I was at Iowa State in college, the West Point basketball staff actually sent me basketball gear because I had been advocating for mental health, and obviously it's a big issue with the veterans and the military community. What's West Point like?
Well, first off, had you gone, we would have been there at the same time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, we're the same.
We're only a few years apart.
Right.
So.
Okay. Right.
But so I went to an all-girls Catholic high school and then went to a predominantly male college. So that was a big culture shock in and of itself. But I grew up kind of in a military family. My dad was in the Navy, so the yelling during like the summer before freshman year didn't really faze me because I was used to the military aspect growing up. But I focused more on volleyball than I did academics my freshman year. I earned my starting spot on the volleyball team 3 tournaments into the season. So I would
You were a starter?
As a freshman.
Oh. Wow. That's not easy with volleyball.
No, and
people understand volleyball, how it comes up from the grass, from the youth volleyball. It's that club volleyball stuff is so serious, and the sort of politics to get in, and the whole volleyball is more political than basketball, from the youth age. But keep going.
So the assistant coach actually recruited me, and the head coach recruited another girl, same position, same year, and neither one of us were getting any play time the first 2 tournaments. And then the third tournament, we were at the University of Indiana, and we were losing. If you ask my dad, he could tell you who we were playing, what the score was, everything.
Was he there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he never missed a volleyball game my entire 4 years. But we were down 2-0, and we were losing the third, and the assistant coach was like, just put her in. Like, what's the harm? And then we came back and won in 5. And in that game, I earned my starting spot. And I kept it. I mean, I had to re-earn it every season, but I started all 4 years of college.
Go ahead.
But and we went to NCAAs the first time in school history my senior year. So that was pretty amazing. But West Point, I would watch film instead of doing homework a majority of the time. So I had to take summer school every summer. I missed military training going into my sophomore year, so I actually had to go see my class graduate and sit in the football stadium and watch my classmates walk across the stage because I was missing a military requirement in order to graduate. So I graduated in August, but I think everything happens for a reason. And the friends I made in the military, I would have never made had I graduated on time.
Wow. Wow. And what's that military training piece? I mean, I think people, don't necessarily understand the differences between the different schools and what training you go through. And
so like going into your freshman year, you do West Point's version of basic training. And then going into your sophomore year, it's field training. So you're out in the woods basically on West Point property and just doing training like land navigation, things of that nature, ranges, more of the military side. The Beast Barracks is kind of breaking you down and building you back up, but you're spending a lot of time in the barracks and just kind of getting a feel of the campus inside the gates of West Point. And the summer training is more outside, but still within West Point property. So, and then you also do training where you go your junior or senior year to a military installation and follow an active duty officer around. So I did that because all of these are military requirements in order to graduate. So between summer school and volleyball training camp, I had to cram in all of this stuff.
I'm sure.
Yeah. And
even as a college basketball player, the time management of the sports at a D1 level, high D1 level.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're talking, we're going to practice at 8 a.m. We're lifting weights at 8 a.m. We got 2-hour practice.
Mm-hmm.
We're going straight to class. We got 3 classes. We're coming back in the evening for a second practice. I mean, it's like, it's a monster. To add the military training in between must be
like a nightmare. We had to be up and have breakfast formation. I think it was 6:50. Breakfast was at 7 to like 7:20, 7:30, and then classes started. And then practice started at 3 o'clock to like 5 o'clock, and then we'd lift. And then you'd have to eat. So by the time I got back to my room, it was probably 8 or 9 o'clock. And I'd watch film instead of I did homework. Don't get me wrong, because obviously I graduated. But I watched more film than I did homework a majority of my freshman year.
And then after you graduated, you were... where'd you go next?
I was I commissioned as a second lieutenant. I went to what used to be Fort Lee, Virginia. I'll still call it Fort Lee, Virginia. Mm-hmm. For my officer basic course. Then I was stationed at Fort Campbell. I deployed to Iraq while I was at Fort Campbell in 2011. I was part of the withdrawal out of Iraq. I came home, went back to Fort Lee for my captain's career course, went to Fort Stewart, Georgia after that, deployed or went on a training rotation to Germany and the Baltics. So what we're doing outside of Russia and with Ukraine is what we've been doing since 2014. So don't let the government fool you. We've been preparing for this since 2014.
Okay, well, we got to talk about that. You can't.
Did we just transition?
Yeah, hold on. Yeah. You can't just skip on by that. And I didn't try and walk you into that. I really didn't. But we discussed that briefly.
She tried to walk us into it.
I think she did. Yeah, we're being zoomed here by the great Mo Bannon.
Mo's got an agenda.
Real military intelligence here. Okay. So yeah, tell me a little bit about that. So we were carrying out missions. We were doing things in Ukraine all the way back to 2014.
No, so we were going over to Germany and the Baltic states over there, training their units, their military units over there, and kind of just having a posture over there. So, and having equipment. But I think we were the first rotation over there, and then it continued kind of like what we did in Afghanistan, what we've done in Iraq. Just fallen in and continued these training rotations. And now they're considering them deployments because they're 9 to 12 months like they were in Afghanistan and Iraq. And while we're still training these other military units, I mean, what's the point in having us there? It's for when World War III breaks.
Okay, so we're over there basically training up our allies or setting up shop is what we're doing. Mm-hmm. We're calling it training, but it's equipment.
In my personal opinion, yes, that's exactly what we're doing.
Okay.
And what do they tell you you're doing? I mean, when you're deployed, because you're intelligent, West Point graduates, there's other West Point graduates, officers, when you're sitting around.
So when I was in Germany, it was just a training rotation. It was something that basically they told us it was like exactly what they do at the 2 training environments here in the States, which you do before you deploy, before there's a conflict. So, I went over there. I actually had back surgery when I was at Fort Campbell because I herniated a disc in my back when I was deployed in Iraq. And I shouldn't have gone over to Germany because you still have to wear all your gear. But they're like, oh, no, it's fine. You're going to sit in the office. Don't worry about it. I had to do all the logistics stuff for my unit. So, I also had to get all of the equipment from the port. We shipped it from the port of Charleston to the port of Bremerhaven in Germany. And we had to get it from the port of Bremerhaven all the way to the different installations within Germany and the Baltics. And my brigade at the time didn't want to send anyone over there. So as a captain, I had to do that myself and figure out all the customs forms. But I knew when I saw all this equipment that it wasn't coming back to the States. It's staying there.
Pre-deployment.
Mm-hmm.
And were you in the Baltic countries also, or just in Germany?
I just stayed in Germany.
But there were.
But my unit from Fort Stewart that was over there, we had, out of the entire brigade, we had different battalions in different Baltic states.
Mm-hmm. And did you know how inflammatory this would be for the Russians to see this forward pre-deployment of military hardware? Did you know at that time, as a young captain, what you were engaged in?
A little bit. I don't think I was fully aware then as I am now, but it did seem a little suspicious back then.
This is the truth that the American public is not really aware of, because of the pre-planning that this was in the playbook for a very long time, where we are today.
And that unit that I was in at Fort Stewart was on the patch chart. So the patch chart is like the deployment chart that, Big Army has, or DOD has, to determine who's going to go where. They pulled us from Afghanistan to go to Germany and the Baltics.
Great.
Wait a minute. Okay. So walk me through the timeline.
So, this happened before I got to that unit.
Yeah.
But they were supposed to deploy to Afghanistan. And then I found out, as I'm processing out of Fort Lee, about to move down to Georgia, that they've come off the patch chart and that now it looks like we're probably going to go to Germany. So I was like, okay, we're going to Germany. I'm a captain. Sounds great to me.
Yeah.
But then once I got to the unit and figured out like what it entailed, and having to get equipment from, not only did we take it from our installation in Fort Stewart, Georgia, I also had to go to what used to be Fort Benning, Georgia, and acquire equipment, take it up to the port, get things from other military installations. So it started to seem a little suspect when you're pulling equipment from multiple units to take over there. For what? And how are we going to get this all back?
Never meant to come back.
Well, if you think about the geopolitical story at that time, we were in a period of relative quiescence with Russia. The story was that the Cold War was over. What was that? I think it was 2012 when they had the debate with Romney and Obama, and they argued about what were the threats to the country. And President Obama made fun of Romney because Romney said the primary threat to the United States of America was the Russians. And President Obama really kind of chastised him, like, what kind of world are you talking? But in reality, this was happening under President Obama's either watch or his lack of watch.
Well, yeah.
Something was going on.
Yeah. Any time you get Romney and Obama in a conversation together now, in retrospect, I feel like they both knew exactly what was going on.
So you're saying they were Mutt and Jeff in it?
They were Mutt and Jeff. That's just my take on it. Looking back, what do you think? You think Romney is a far cry away from Obama, and when it comes to the upper echelon of American political elite?
Hard to say. It's
hard to say.
It's hard to say. And does it really matter? Because now we look back on it, and it was a full argument, because this, and we've talked about it a lot on the podcast, this movement against the Russians has been going on
100 years.
Oh, well, for sure that, but just in terms of when
post-World War II.
Well, when the Soviet Union fell,
right,
by the time we got into the Clinton administration, they were already working this thing. The Clintons set up the conditions, then it just went forward and forward and forward. And it's obvious that the military was all in on this idea, and here we are. Here we are right now.
Well, and my question goes, and this is a question for you, two questions. The first one is, because I've never served, and it dawns on me that even when you talk about the logistics of the military and the process, the pipeline to the military, that it's its own world, which is why I can understand the loyalty and sort of community and brotherhood that the military community has, that the veteran community has. It's like its own world, and one of the podcasts that I'm very, very interested in, so I am studying up on it because I'm going to be a United States Senator, hopefully, and I don't want to be walking in blind, but the Sean Ryan podcast, the Sean Ryan Show, and he has all these ex-military guys on, high-level operators and contractors and CIA and Green Berets and SEALs and the whole nine. So I'm hearing their stories, and you know, it's hard to make heads or tails when you're getting that unique of a story. But how the military works at a more baseline level for your average soldier, if that's saying it right, are the rest of the soldiers, you know, what are those conversations like? Are those conversations like, hey, what are we, you know, is there like a, you know, what are we doing here in Germany? Or is it like, hey, we're all just here to serve and to get better, to train, to have each other's back, to travel and see the world? I know that's a lot of it. People love it. People join the military for school, for financial purposes, for travel, you know, all kinds of things. But are there conversations going on like in your small little nucleus of like, what are we doing out here in the Baltics? Or is it just like we're going to follow the orders?
I think there is some conversation. It also depends on what rank.
Yeah.
You know, junior enlisted might not be thinking, what are we doing here? They're probably following orders and like, this is the mission we were given. This is what we're going to do. I mean, some junior officers the same way. I think the higher up in rank you get to a certain rank, there are more of those conversations of like, what are we doing here? This doesn't seem right. Why are we in Afghanistan for 20 years? Why are we in Iraq? Why is the government lying to us that we're not in Iraq anymore when we are? Like things like that.
Oh, hold on, wait. First off, I got to know, can you even talk about these things? Is it okay for you to talk about these things?
I mean, I'm not disclosing operational.
Okay.
I'm not violating operational security.
Okay. I want to make sure.
I took
You're a veteran. You're a veteran
and I also am OPSEC level 2 certified. So I'm not disclosing anything
that isn't already public knowledge or something like that. Okay, so tell me about this because okay, I'm in a primary, a Senate primary against a man who was in the Navy, military intelligence. He served in both Iraq and Afghanistan. And my personal opinion is, and this speaks nothing to the veterans in general on a personal level about the choice to serve their country in either one of those wars, because that's what soldiers do. But both wars are indefensible, in my opinion. That's just the Iraq war, going back and looking at it now, complete nightmare. And we went in there, we won that war. I mean, we took the Iraqi government. It was like 7 days or something, you know, wild, easy. I mean, it just toppled over like a house of cards. But what we left there now in the stead is horrifying, to say the least. There is no Iraq anymore. It's just a big proxy country between Iran and, you know, Jordan, and, you know, it's just there for the taking, right? Afghanistan, another indefensible war. I mean, I was just watching the son of Massoud. I think his name was Massoud, and he was the son of the NRF leader that fought the Russians when
that was assassinated.
That was assassinated right now.
Very famous.
His son just recently did an interview with Sean Ryan, and he was talking about the Afghanistan now after the latest withdrawal, and how the Biden administration or the U.S. government has been sending the Taliban
huge money,
almost, I think it was like, I want to say $80 million a week, something like that.
Get them on the payroll.
Well, his explanation, and I'm gonna come around to a question for you, but his explanation was that because the Taliban took over and there's seemingly nothing that we could do about it because we've left and we're not going to now turn around and go back in, the only thing left to do is to negotiate a peace where the Taliban don't abuse and oppress the Afghani people. And so paying them, so they're basically giving a price. Give us this money and what we asked for in a negotiation, and we won't take it out on the Afghani citizens, right? Which is a testament of who they are. And I'm not defending them when I say we shouldn't have went into Afghanistan. I'm just saying why we went in wasn't because we said the Taliban are a bad bunch of hombres and we need to get rid of them. If they would have said that, in retrospect, I'd have been all good with the war, maybe. Maybe. Not at the expense of American citizens and our own economy and security or our own border. But I definitely understand saying, hey, there's a group of people being killed indiscriminately over here, and we want to go and help them out. I understand that.
If you think about it historically, we do some things as a country that nobody's ever been able to pull off. I think the British were defeated by the Afghans 2 times, the British Empire. I don't just mean a couple of English soldiers. I mean, they were in there big time. 2 times they got crushed. They crushed the Russians with American help. We were at a town hall just last week, and Royce says, well, what was the question? The way you phrased that question, it was a great question. I want to get it right.
Which one?
The question when you asked the crowd, what American president first?
Oh, you mean which American president was the first one to invite the Mujahideen into the Oval Office?
Right.
Right.
It was great.
Right. Yeah, nobody knew.
I knew, and you told me to stop.
Don't you say a word. Listening on the podcast, talking about it all the time. But it is strange that that crowd of Republican Party
stalwarts
members, of that age group, have no clue of what went on there in the Middle East. That's why I asked you about your generation and the general sense of government affairs and foreign affairs at that time when it was Kennedy, because even once it was Reagan, people must have missed that he brought the Mujahideen
But that's my point of those assassinations.
Yeah.
Up until Kennedy's assassination, people were very engaged politically, in my opinion, relatively speaking, to what happened after those assassinations. And then, of course, you had this assassination attempt on President Reagan 2 months after his inauguration, and people just withdrew. They said, whoa, I don't want to be, this is crazy. People got afraid. That's what would have been so potent. And I'm waiting for the thing to really mature with President Trump's experience this past weekend, because he wasn't killed. Will that lead to a heightened engagement as it starts to creep in everybody's beady brains what actually took place there? Because it's kind of the anti-assassination. It's an act
of our time, of this era. Yeah.
And there's a great scene, I'm going to play it on my podcast next week. There's a great scene in Pulp Fiction, because that scene in Pulp Fiction where they escape being killed, right? And they're sitting around in the restaurant afterwards, and Samuel L. Jackson's character says, John Travolta says, maybe it's a miracle, but maybe not. Samuel Jackson said, it doesn't matter if it's a miracle. I felt the hand of God. So it's how President Trump responds to this in his life.
Yeah.
Because he could suddenly raise the whole culture up by his own acknowledgement, whether it's a miracle or not. He can make it miraculous for himself and go through a kind of redemptive process and lead our whole country in that redemptive process.
For sure. Well, that's already, I think that's happening with or without his consent at this point.
Well, I think that started by showing up on Monday at the RNC.
Did you talk about it? Because we weren't there.
He didn't have to come that early. He walked in on Monday, and to me that showed I'm not weak. I don't think that man's weak by any means.
No, of course not.
But it shows I'm strong. They're not going to get me down. They're not going to break me. I'm going to show the American people just how strong I am. And last night in his speech, he talked about what happened on Saturday and from his point of view. And he said, this will be the one time I talk about it. And you could tell that he is a changed man.
He does look changed, doesn't he? His energy is different, isn't it? Did you see that?
It is.
I saw that.
It is.
For sure.
I felt he was like,
he's been touched by God.
Well, he was.
Yeah.
I mean, all of us are sort of touched by God, but then there's divine intervention touched by God, and he was, he had 3 bullets miss his head. It wasn't just one.
I think it was more than 3.
Might have been more than 3.
I heard between 3 and 8.
Whoa.
Yeah. Which makes you wonder how do you get 8 shots off towards the president of the United States?
Well, it could have been more than one shooter. And there's now acoustic evidence that's emerging. Of course, I haven't reviewed it myself, so it's hearsay.
Yes.
And I haven't reviewed it, but there's now acoustic evidence that's starting to come out.
That there's more than one shooter?
Because we've done the acoustic evidence on Dealey Plaza came out like 25 years, 30 years after the event of Kennedy being shot. And they go, whoa, this acoustic evidence indicates there was more than one shooter. Well, now people have been down this road before. so they know exactly what to do. Those people that did that research, they were considered kooks, conspiracy theorists. Now, we're all, as American citizens, aware what moves you got to make to assess independently, to self-govern, how to come up with the ideas.
Well, and you were talking about Reagan's assassination attempt.
Yeah.
How quickly did they get him in the car after he was shot at?
The first thing I said to Royce was, who are these people? Because we went to the Lincoln-Reagan dinner in May when Royce won.
In Minnesota.
And Royce won the endorsement at that convention.
Trump was at our convention.
Okay.
So he was there, and we went through security. And these people that were there were the A-team. I mean, because I can recognize the A-team because I've trained with the A-team. These people were like, you just stand up, and you even get a little bit proud just being around these guys because they're not going to cotton any kind of slovenliness. These people are organized.
Killers.
And these people that jumped up on the stage, the first thing, somebody's coat opened up. I said, man, that guy's got a 40-inch waist. What the hell is that? Yeah. They did not have, I knew instantly it wasn't the A-team.
I think one of them is one of the agents that's usually around him, but the rest of them, not so much. And I went to an event up north, on the East Coast, up north, and I don't think the A-team was there either for Secret Service. So I think one of the females actually that was in Pennsylvania this last weekend was part of that detail at the event I went to, because they left some things unsecure that should not have been unsecure.
It's obvious. Well, I saw an article today.
Well, first, before you go there, because it and part of the benefit of having you in is you get your perspective as somebody who was served in the military, who's trained, but who also sees that's a problem with the gender detail of this security team, and it's something you're not even supposed to say, right? I mean, as a woman, you're not supposed to say, wait a minute, why do we have this chick on it's like, you should be all things women, but
I'm all about having a woman in that position.
You got to be able to do it.
If they can dead carry a man twice their size, then yeah, they deserve to be on that detail.
Right.
Neither one of those females I saw on that detail, in my opinion, deserve to be on that detail. Why is the one female 2 feet back from the president, and in footage at the hospital, she's still trying to holster her gun? Couldn't even get it holstered.
You saw when they got out of the ambulance, in front of the hospital.
Did you feel the response time was slow to get to the stage the way you watched it? Did you feel it was slow?
It was, and then the other female was messing with her glasses. You're more concerned about your sunglasses than you are the president of the United States.
Yeah, well, they both should be off. But
the response time I thought was slow. Looking at footage
I'm glad to hear you say that, because you question your own, because it's subjective, right? These are subjective responses. Go ahead.
I think there's some, it depends on the angle that you're looking at it. I think some of the Secret Service got there faster than others. Might have been the females that got there a little slower, but those females are setting females back 50 years. And I think that, why would you let the president of the United States stand up? You don't know if there's another shooter.
Oh, that's exactly what I thought.
And you're leaving him open. His stomach is completely
second shooter
to another shot.
The second shooter. That iconic scene was the greatest. That's going to be
I'm glad they did.
Right.
I'm glad they did, though.
But it's the greatest failure of protection.
But even if he still would have done that had they let him up when it's time to move him. But you let him stand up, open him up to a second shooter, and then wait to move him.
Well, I gotta say,
you keep him down and then let him stand up when you're ready to move.
There you go.
Wait a second. Now, in fairness to this Secret Service team that had a major catastrophic letdown, Donald Trump's got some badass alpha energy, and when he stood up and said, "Wait,"
I got to get my shoes.
And when he said that, you could see that, their trained mind was like, no, from what I could see, their trained mind was, we should be moving him, but their human mind was like,
there is no human mind there, Royce.
This dude just got shot. He's got blood dripping from his face, and he says, wait, as the president of the United States.
Their job is to push him down there.
Yeah.
Their job is to push him on.
I know, but they didn't.
Yeah, well, they didn't.
I get that.
I'm giving him a little grace and saying, because Donald Trump said, wait, what I'm saying is, even if they messed up,
all things function for good.
Oh, it was a beautiful moment.
It was.
I'm so glad they blew that right there, because those three fist pumps might be the turning point in American history.
Yes, that's
and I'm not
true.
saying they did it on purpose. They didn't let him do it. They didn't know what he was doing. They didn't know how it would come across. It was how it came across on camera too. You know, because there is a sort of theater to this whole society that we live in.
It was great.
The camera angle and the timing
with the flag
and his timing.
Yeah.
And it was funny because when he first stood up, before he stood up, you could hear him say, wait, wait, wait. But when he went to say fight, he just mouthed it. He didn't say it. And even that gave it something special.
It was also by the mic when he stood up.
Oh, okay. Is that why?
I mean,
but I thought he screamed. I mean, he said fight pretty loud. He looked like he was saying it loud.
He did, but I think the mic picked up. I think the mic picked up when he said, wait, let me get my shoes.
At the podium.
Yeah.
But then
and then they started to move him.
Okay.
It looked like they moved him like an inch or two, and that's when he did.
Even that part was
strange.
That's
a damn good mic, ain't it? That's a damn good mic.
You're shimmying him over.
They had a hard time
Like
moving
you just, because I think, I honestly believe that he wanted to stay on that stage and continue his speech.
Badass.
I mean, that's the way it looked.
Well, but Mo is bringing up the attempted assassination on President Reagan, and there was none of this kind of uncertainty.
Muttering around.
No, I mean, those guys got him in that limo. I think one of the Secret Service agents took a bullet for him and covered him. They pushed his ass down, and they didn't let him get back up.
Right.
It wasn't up to him.
Stark difference.
It was, but then you have to say, okay, if you want to go to the other side, you can say, if it was divine intervention, it was perfect.
It was. Yeah. I just got to say.
I mean, it was.
He didn't take another. Now, if they had not pushed him down and the shooter had not been neutralized already and he ended up taking another shot.
Oh, that would have been bad.
That would have been a whole different story.
Yeah.
But that didn't happen.
Right.
And I mean, the bullet missed by millimeters. I mean, anybody who denies that it was an act of God is probably an atheist or a Satanist at this point. I know people who were, people were converted that day. I mean, that was a moment of spiritual conversion.
For the country.
That visual, that moment was a significant moment of spiritual conversion. So I'm just not going to preclude that everything went exactly as God wanted it. I just, on my Christian side, won't let me do it.
I was thinking about that today because we have this messianic, all of the Abrahamic cultures have this messianic message, this eschatology. And, Christ is going to come back.
Right.
Right? How? How's he going to come back? How is the hand of God going to be manifest in our country? Are we expecting him to show up on a chariot with a bunch of angels?
Right.
Or did Donald Trump's head just get turned so that we could all see
the first few miracles? You mean?
Right.
Yeah.
It's
and it is laid out how Christ comes back, but
okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you're working in a different book.
I'm working in a different book. Yeah, that's right.
That's why we're HEBROES.
Well, let me just say about this book, people are going to get mad at me, but if there's an information war, when did the information war start?
That's a fair point, my friend. It definitely is a fair point.
I mean, why do we all have an eschatology? I mean, I know I'm not trying to cause a huge controversy. I'm just saying I'm keeping my head on a swivel because in Europe, where you we're this close to a nuclear war.
Right.
So we all believe not all of us, that's a cognitive distortion, but many people believe it's coming, and many people don't vote because they don't think it's going to matter. It doesn't matter what human agency still can bring to this process, which your father talks about all the time, human agency. So then you have this out that says, well, the end's predetermined. Yeah. Predetermined. So
yeah, well, I mean that's just a.
Boy, I'm in trouble for saying this, aren't I?
No, I mean well, it's heresy by many people's standards.
I'm not trying to be heretical. I'm just saying, but we're in an information war.
Yes.
When did it start? When is it easier to have an information war? When a handful of scribes and priests control all the knowledge, or when we've got a million podcasts going on? Something to think about.
No doubt. And, what I'll say is this. People have huge problems with free will and predeterminism anyway, just in general. So, when we talk about Christianity and faith, we're already diving. I mean, that still has yet to be really sorted out.
Well, it's a good subject to start sorting out right now, because look at what we just saw.
Well, yeah.
How could we? I mean, how is it Donald Trump's free will to turn his head? Was it predetermined? There's a great scene in The Matrix where the Oracle says, "What'll really break your mind." You
already made the choice. You're not here to make the choice. You're here to understand why you made it.
Right.
Yeah, that blows people's mind.
Well, that's what we're talking about.
That's freaky. That's different.
Because I would like to believe that we still have the human agency.
I'm going to say that God literally put his hand on Donald Trump's head and turned it. For me, there's no other way to explain that a bullet missed the man's head by that tiny, and not just one, 3, and it may be more, but at least 3. We saw the digital the digital rendition of the trajectory of the bullet in his head had 3 bullets passing right by, and not only the first 2 bullets that missed by a millimeter. I mean, and they just they obviously cut his ear. They hit him so close.
He said he bled like crazy.
They hit him so they touched. He was shot.
He said that last night in his speech. He said, the doctor said, "I've never seen so much blood. The ear bleeds the most."
Yeah,
and of course I had the liberal news behind me. So.
And President Trump was hilarious. He goes, "I learned something."
Yeah,
that was really funny. I have to say something.
Wait. So again, he got shot. Let's stop saying he was shot at.
No, he was shot.
The man was shot. Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm. The bullet was so close that he bled. Mm-hmm. 2 bullets, so close that they grazed him. Had he ducked his head this way out of instinct, that 3rd bullet was going to blow his head off. Mm-hmm. He turned into the fire, right? I mean, the bullet was coming this way, and he turns this way
into it.
Yeah. Had his first instinct been to bring his body down, remember he delayed ducking, right? He gets hit and he kind of turns. And then the other shots ring out, and then he starts to go to duck and prone. If he had prone first out of instinct,
bye-bye.
That 3rd bullet was going to hit him.
This is an interesting thing, too, because he was actually taken off the stage one other time not that long ago, and he ducked like he dropped. And he didn't do that this time. And I remember looking at it and go, boy, there's a delay in how he's going down, because I've seen him drop, and he knows how to drop his energy just bang, right down to the ground. Mm-hmm. I want to say something.
Go ahead.
For all the listeners and viewers, I'm a very faithful person, and I've been reading the Bible my entire life. I just want to say we're at a very critical moment of human history, and I want to leave open the possibility that our humanity can survive and thrive. I don't want to give over to it does not matter. I love that song, Total Destruction is the Only Solution, Bob Marley. Mm-hmm. But the first time I heard it, I thought it was really dark. And now I'm looking at the lack of self-governance now, the way we've given over to dependency. And I now I'm saying, okay, Bob, I see what you're saying. Total destruction might be the only solution, but the lover of life in me, the lover of my children, I don't know more, but loving my neighbors, the other humans in my life, I would like to believe that if people got involved and actually self-governed, got involved, like precinctstrategy.com, actually got involved in their local party, actually just voted in the primary August 13th for Royce White for Senate.
And I know what you were saying.
You're trying to understand?
No, I know exactly what you're saying.
Bail me out on this, because I can just
I don't have to bail you.
I can see the live chat.
I've taken the knives already for this. I mean, I've gone straight down the pipe with the 501c3 Christians time and time again. It's one of the I think it's one of the reasons why my ascendance in the movement is somewhat slow and staggered, because I say stuff like that about 501c3 Christianity.
How about just no one knows the hour? How about we got to keep working?
My point is, a hallmark of the 501c3 Christian worldview application of Scripture is, and has been for a long time, that ultimately politics, culture, government, all sorts of things are kind of neither here nor there, because the eternal's already set, and the saying is that God's already won, and that Christ has already saved us, and so
I'm a citizen of heaven.
It's going to be what it's going to be.
Right.
That's your free will. It really is an undermining of free will. And so as soon as you go to say that, and so they use Revelation, for example, to justify this claim and say, hey, it's already laid out in the Bible that all, and as soon as anything.
Thanks for the cover there.
As soon as anything.
Hebrew.
Yeah, as soon as anything tumultuous happens in our society, people always go to the end times. They say we're in the end times, we're living in the end times, and you're supposed to accept that. And if you don't accept that, you're not Christian. It's like, well, hang on, guys. I mean, I think this might be part of the problem. And I'm honest. I don't hold any punches with my fellow Christians around this issue. Oh, hang on, guys. And I think Steve is the same way. I mean, Steve's life work up until this point and how far he's brought the movement wouldn't be where it is if he had that kind of eschatological.
What's the point of the movement if we believe that the end point is already set?
If Steve had that kind of eschatological framework, then he wouldn't be as involved with political strategy and political outcomes of the process as he is. And I'm of the same thinking. It's like, okay, guys, don't be thinking you're going to pinpoint and interpret exact, because none of you actually know the hour. And it says that in the scripture, nobody knows the hour. But just from a logical standpoint, you don't know the hour.
Well, beyond that, how do you work out your own redemption if you give up and allow evil to take over your life and everybody else's? The whole point.
Well, but their argument is often that it's not evil taking over my life. I'm saved.
Well, see,
it's evil taking over the world, which is totally fine from a scriptural analysis. That's going to happen. That the devil's going to take over the world. The Antichrist is going to rise, and I'm going to be saved. And if I die in the meantime, if my children die, we'll all be saved. And fine. I mean, sure. I mean, if you were baptized and you're going to be, welcomed into the kingdom of heaven, then good. Okay.
We're good with that.
Yeah, that's
okay, great.
But what if you don't die? That's
what if you die and you get
that's
there?
The flip side of that coin is, what if you live? Then what are you going to be doing?
You have this great answer that you give. People ask you very frequently at the town halls when we go, this is really interesting, Mo. They'll ask them, why are you doing this? Why? Because first of all, it's dangerous.
It is.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
It's getting very dangerous for him because actually, he's telling the truth, no holds bar. And, there's people that fight it.
As Steve would say, all signal, no noise. Royce White.
And when they say, and when they stand up and they go, hey, would you tell us why you're doing this? And your answer is, sir.
I'm doing it for my own salvation. I'm not doing it for you guys. Because at the end of the day, I mean, that's really all we Christians can control. I can't force you to see the truth, to speak the truth, to act upon the truth. I can't force you to do it. So your salvation is not in my hands anyway. That's the free will of it. I can tell you the truth, but ultimately it's me telling the truth that's the main issue for me.
That's your redemptive process.
Yeah, personally.
Right.
Right. So I can't make you do anything. That's the limits of my human agency is I can't be in charge of you.
So Mo, we got a movement here in Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
We got a great candidate that's leading the movement, but we actually have built, and it was really built on the precinct strategy. And I was the one that first started talking about it, about building a statewide organization.
Here in Minnesota.
And we've built it now. It's there. The people, see, the party kept everybody apart. We couldn't even find out. We'd go to these meetings and there'd be resistors.
Mm-hmm.
But by the time we would go to see them, everybody went home. The party wouldn't give us the list of the people. We'd go, who's that guy? Who's that guy? Well, we finally have connected all the people that are really interested in 1776, not 1946. And we're all working together now.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a theory. I want to put it right here for you.
Okay.
I have decided that republicanism, not the Republican Party, but the philosophy of republicanism is a redemptive process. Because as you know from serving in the U.S. military, you're risking your life and giving your life over for common cause, for the freedom of your country.
Mm-hmm.
And that, in some sense, whatever your issues were, and you can speak to it. I just know you went through it as a captain. You got some great redemptive process by honorably serving your country. Well, that's for every citizen now.
Mm-hmm.
Any citizen that gives over to restoring and maintaining our republicanism, our republic, can actually find a redemptive process a la what Mr. White just said.
Is that what do you find that to be? Was there a redemptive process from serving?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I also think that my service to my country didn't stop when I took off the uniform. I think that it has continued. I am not currently running for office. I did get asked that at the convention this week, though.
Are you going to run? They asked you, will you run?
Some people had heard a rumor that I was considering running this election cycle, but I am not running this election cycle, but asked me if I was going to run in the future. And even though I'm not running, I'm still getting involved and I'm helping candidates get elected. I mean, my congresswoman down in Florida, I'm helping her. I helped her door knock a little bit. I wasn't a resident of her district at the time, but I flew all the way down from Virginia to help her door knock and the grassroots effort. And I think that with War Room, I think that's helping serve my country still.
It is, but I think we want to talk about this just a little bit more because there's so many people who never had a chance to serve in the military.
And I think getting involved now by precinct strategy and also getting involved to help grassroots candidates and America First candidates get elected. So my dad and I talked about this before he went into prison, and we've emailed about it. You know, in order to get involved, it doesn't mean donating money or just showing up. You have to, be part of a phone bank or door knock, anything you can do physically to get involved to help carry that candidate across the finish line, I think is service to this country.
And by giving over to that, my theory is no matter what sins or whatever psychological foibles that people are struggling with, when they give over to be part of the country, it's healing. It's fantastic healing. What's that line Steve says where he says, if it's your mission, or you say, what is that?
What is your mission? What is your task? Yeah, that's what you got to ask yourself.
I think in your opening statement yesterday, you said task and purpose too.
Yeah, task and purpose. Yeah, and if it is to save your country, then this country will be saved.
And so if
he's got a million of those,
but all the hundreds of thousands of people.
I heard someone channeling in their debate yesterday. My dad.
Was I? Well,
a little bit. No, you didn't know it was.
Thank you. That is a huge honor coming from you, Mo. But I don't even think the people who know the show know the show. That the people who don't know the show or don't know War Room, I don't even think we've said that you're Steve Bannon's daughter.
Yeah.
I mean, for somebody who's never seen War Room,
they're going to go, what?
They're going to go, wait.
He has a daughter?
Yeah. This is Steve Bannon's daughter for anybody out there who's not familiar with the MAGA movement, the great Maureen Bannon, and she's the CEO of War Room and makes sure everything runs well and takes care of Steve in a lot of ways, and is obviously the communicative tissue to the general while he's serving his unjust prison sentence. Where do you see this going for the election? I mean, your take on the polling, the odds in Vegas. After he was shot, we saw him have a huge spike in the polls, and then the media comes back and they say his chances of winning are declining.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
I mean, it's just crazy, So where
they lie like Joe Frazier.
I think it's that's a good one. I think it's 10% truth, 90% lie with the media, especially mainstream media these days. And I think that Donald Trump, my belief is will win in a landslide, but we need to do everything we can. Get active. Make sure you're registered to vote. Your family members are registered to vote. Your friends are registered to vote, so that we can carry him across the finish line on November 5th and get him to the Capitol to be sworn in on January, I can't remember off the top of my head, can't remember, 25th?
I think it's the 20th. I don't.
Anyways, 2025 at high noon to get him sworn in as president of the United States. I think
and
that
60 senators, wouldn't that be incredible if it was really a
Is that how many America First senators are running?
No, right now, if you won, we'd have 20 reliable votes in the Senate, and some of those are a little bit squishy.
Well, but we also got J.D. Vance giving up his seat if we win, which will probably be filled by...
Not if we win, when we win.
When we win, that's good. Yes, good, when we win. And that seat will probably be filled by, we're hoping, Vivek Ramaswamy, that's being floated out there. That'd be cool. I don't know if he would do it, but a lot of people are floating that out there. He'd be a badass senator. I'm not gonna lie. He'd be bringing.
He's sharp. Bring the fire.
He's sharp. Yeah. I mean, it's. I know a lot of people got their skepticism about him, but he definitely is an asset. I mean, there's no doubt about that.
You know what I like about you
in that seat for Ohio, unless there's somebody better that I don't.
But
I don't
you know what I like.
I don't even know if he would do it though, because
Royce?
I mean, the man's a billionaire.
Royce,
right?
That's the problem.
Yeah.
All these people are so successful. We have this idea that to be in the Senate, you're the wise man. You got to be super successful.
Right.
And then you start looking in their histories and what they did. It doesn't matter who they are. They got some things to pick at, right? You go, what's that? Because I review these things.
Yeah, I think.
But when you come up right from the street,
yeah,
there's
I'm an anomaly though.
But we need lots of anomalies.
But there just aren't lots of there aren't lots of.
Yes,
me.
because you just
I'm
said
not,
that.
I'm not tooting my own horn, but I'm the anomaly.
Yeah,
of
there's lots of people out there. The money doesn't matter anymore.
Well, but
that's what we got to get to.
No, but the first problem is the people who are the anomalies have to believe that the money doesn't matter, and that's the real anomaly. The anomaly isn't how I talk or my command of history or charisma or any of that shit. The anomaly is that I actually have the craziness to believe that the money doesn't matter. That's the anomaly. And there ain't many of those. I mean, that's kind of, I'm not saying there couldn't be. I'm just saying
I just watched President Trump move his head into the line of fire and 3 bullets.
Definitely not precluding a miracle.
Thank you.
Yes, that is, but I will say this. I don't like this whole, I'm going to say this.
No.
I don't like this whole digging into people's past and making qualifications based on, who people were. There's a very anti-Christian sort of ethos to let's go look at who somebody was 12 years ago and say, because you could do it to any of us. Mm-hmm. I mean, they do it to Steve, they do it to Peter, they do it to me, they do it to Trump, they do it to Amber Rose. They would do it. They do it to Archbishop Vigano. I mean, it doesn't matter who it is. Yeah. I mean, they'll say Archbishop Vigano, you're not a holy man. Look at the scandals in the Catholic Church. Anybody who came up who's a Catholic now, you can wholesale condemn because of the pedophilia scandal in the church. So it's just like, what are people saying now? And I'm not saying we should just trust everybody who steps up to say the right thing, because it's certainly not hard to catch on to what's the right thing to say and say it at the right time. But I'm much more comfortable holding people's feet to the fire who step up to say something and then don't follow through. That doesn't worry me. The people who worry me are the people who don't say anything, who are in the background, in the shadow, and you can't keep an accounting of what they're doing or saying at all. We just
talked about one of those people yesterday in the car.
Who?
I'm not going to mention it. You have to go first, because we don't want to throw people under the bus.
Well, I'll say.
Remember we had that conversation about people? You said he wishes he could tell the truth. What's stopping him? Remember we were talking about somebody? We were saying, I said, well, you said that dude's okay.
I think I know you're saying. I'm not going to miss-say name, but I'll give you an example. And I had to watch his face all weekend down at the RNC. Speaker Mike Johnson. Mm-hmm. There's an example. Says all the right things. And we had to take that at face value. I remember when we first got rid of McCarthy, and and people were
Mega Mike,
yes, who was also at the RNC, and people were celebrating that, and I thought it was the right move. I thought Matt Gaetz did the right thing by pulling that move.
Me too.
And we all thought that Mike was a great replacement, and he may be an improvement. I'm not saying that he wasn't an improvement, but certainly he's fallen short of the expectation
of holding the line
for his own self-declared position politically, his own self-declared worldviews. He's fallen short of the holding the line. But that we can see. See, people who step up and say they're a thing and then they don't hold that standard, we can see that. It's the people who come up and don't really say much of anything that's really hard to see. So my point is, even if I disagree with Vivek on some things, or I'm not really sure about his past, the things he's saying now are going to be difficult to walk back. They're just going to be. I mean, we're all getting pushed over to one side of the line, And that inertia that pushes us because of what we're willing to stand for, like me or you or Mo or Steve or Peter or Jack Posobiec or or Trump or Amber Rose or whoever it is now, we're getting pushed over to one side of the line. There's not going to be any forgiveness for you to walk back across that line unless you do something so blatant that all of us can tell you're a sellout. And Mike Johnson's teetering on that line, I'm going to say. In my opinion, he's teetering right on it. The wide public doesn't realize it, but Steve knows. And that's why Steve calls him feet to the fire all the time, because me and him are debt hawks, right? We go, if you raise that debt ceiling, you're a sellout. That's a high standard. But go ahead.
Well, I just want to address Peter Navarro is a political prisoner.
Yeah.
My dad is a political prisoner. Merrick Garland, roaming the streets free, no consequences. And he is blatantly trying to hide tapes. My dad and Peter did nothing wrong. They did nothing wrong. And Mike Johnson didn't think that we should hold Merrick Garland in inherent contempt and arrest him on Capitol grounds. Urged the Congresswoman who put that forth to lower it to a $10,000 a day fine. And then we had 4 Republicans vote to not even do that. It just shows, and I've said this before, that there are spineless Republicans, and I think it stems from the Speaker of the House.
That's really kind of you to call them spineless Republicans. I wouldn't call them spineless.
That's an improvement, ain't it?
Yeah, that's very nice.
That ain't what we would call them.
No, we wouldn't call them.
Oh, you're a sweetheart.
I'm
Mo's
being
being
nice.
as politically correct as she can be. Because I would I would say some things that supposedly would make me unfit for the office, but hopefully I get in and I'll say I'm on Capitol Hill.
But this is the whole point. We're at this point now in American history that the norms of goodwill and camaraderie and citizenship have been turned against us. Mm-hmm. And this is one of the things we're having a problem with here in Minnesota with Royce's candidacy. Oh, I'd vote for Royce. I'd give Royce money if he'd just quit swearing.
I actually was told that at the RNC.
Really? Somebody said that?
No, they are going to vote for you.
But they said.
But they said.
Can he not swear?
Yes.
Were they Christian? They didn't tell you. You don't know.
They didn't tell me. And they were actually really nice, and they're both precinct committee people. But I said, I can tell him, but I don't think he's going to listen to me.
But the point of it is.
I take your advice into consideration. Give me a break, Mo.
I don't think you're going to stop. I don't think you're going to stop swearing.
I love you. I could do a lot of things for you. That I can't do. I'm sorry. I can't.
I can do anything for love, but I can't do that.
But I can't do that.
Meatloaf. I'm just going to.
But I'm not going to stop
swearing. But this is the thing. But I'm a lot older than both of you, and I've been watching this a lot longer. I've been watching this parade of Joe Frazier's come up in front of me my entire life. And the water keeps rising up to the point that, I've been successful my entire life. I can't be successful anymore. I'm talking about in business. They're just raising that water up. They're drowning everybody. And it's not going to stop. And then I'm supposed to sit there and say, oh, yeah, let's shake hands. It's all good. No, it's not good. And then I have 5 military-age children, and I respect your service. I don't want my son to have to go to the Ukraine, particularly since I left most of my family there dead. So I don't like the niceties anymore. I wish we had that kind of culture. But when they use the niceties against me to muzzle me, it takes real resistance. And I see your dad goes off sometimes on these rants, and he goes off.
Inspiring.
It's very inspiring. And Donald Trump goes off. Yeah. And then they go, oh, these people are crazy. No, they're not crazy.
Donald Trump is actually one of the nicest people in the movement. I mean, as far as MAGA goes, and I think I saw Steve say this one day, and I laughed because.
Yes, he did. He did.
He said that.
I saw that.
He goes, Donald Trump's not the most brazen MAGA that MAGA has to offer, And it's true. And it's a testament of how bad they try to mischaracterize him. And we see that all the time.
But the point is, when people listen to you, for example, like on the podcast, they think, man, this cat's wild. Then they come see you personally, and you're so gentle and kind. And we went to a deal this past week. Mm-hmm. It was completely unscripted. And somebody asked him a question, and he talked about his mother. And he started crying.
I did.
And it was very sincere.
Yeah,
now, I know there's people that can cry on cue. He's not one of them.
I'm not. No.
And, you could barely tell he was crying. I'm telling you, most people in the room did not know. I know because I know him well.
A few people I saw in the crowd, they knew. They start crying too.
But most people did not know it.
Yeah, they didn't know.
But my point is that it's not that Royce is not kind and gentle and thoughtful and responsible. It's that he's had enough of the bullshit. Mm-hmm. And so he's standing up and saying, because
let's just cut through the bullshit though. I'm a black militant. I am. It's just a cultural thing too. And people don't like that. And the reason why I love Steve so much, I just got to say, one, you respect competence and intellect and sacrifice, right? And you and I know that Steve's a man that didn't need to do any of this. Mm-hmm. Greatly successful in every walk of life you could possibly hope to be, well before ever getting involved in this shit. I mean, he just didn't need the headache. You only get involved in this and give yourself the headache
for love of your country.
For love of your country, right? When you're a patriot. So he didn't have to do this. So I respect the sacrifice. But what I really respect the most is that we do have cultural divisions that still exist in this country that we will have to choose to get over if we want to save this country. And Steve, being a white man, although he's Irish, so the Irish were slaves too, right?
Black Irish.
Yeah, the Irish were the black people of Europe. That's just a fact. That's a historical fact. But still, he's a white man, and he has made it his life's work. I was going back to watch him talk at Oxford, and a bunch of pretentious liberals try to hit him with the woke ideology, and he's just smacking them down left and right. But he's real gracious about it. He's another one who's much more happy warrior, kind, and gracious than I am. And sometimes I go off and stuff, and I'll send it to Steve, and Steve kept shaking my head. He's just like, like a son or a nephew who's, out there wild. I'm like, man, I had to do it. He's like, all right. But, he was real gracious to these people. He's always very gracious, which really pissed me off of how they're treating him, because he's very, very gracious to them. They're afraid of him. Not like if they came to arrest me, I would get it because I'm a militant, right? It's like being a civilian versus not being a civilian in the street. I get it when you come to shoot first, when you come to talk to me, because I'm going to shoot first. That's understandable. Steve ain't like that. They are solely going after Steve because of how dangerous his mind is.
The intellectual.
That is the most corrupt thing you can do to try and suppress the intellect. But my point is, again, Steve is gracious to these people. Very, very gracious to these people. I'm a militant, culturally, but yet still Steve sees the importance that the black and Hispanic working class are populations and demographics of people that we're going to have to convince of the truth. Not lie to them, but just tell them a truth that's digestible and will actually benefit their lives, which it will. Not everybody in our movement is willing to make that concession. And people better get real serious and real clear about this real quick. Because after Donald Trump wins, the fight ain't over. Okay?
Oh, they're not giving up the power.
Oh, they will wait Donald Trump out, and they will go to work of coalescing the uniparty right underneath his nose, and they will do it to a point where, in order for him to really dismantle them at a level that will be a death blow.
It's going to take some swearing.
Not some swearing. It's gonna make him look like a tyrant.
Right.
And that's going to be their next play.
And that's why they're pre-labeling him as a tyrant, because they know what's coming.
That's right. Once he wins, they're going to coalesce the uniparty to a point where, in order for him to actually dismantle it for long standing.
And he's going to need the backing of every American citizen to give him the strength to do what he needs to do.
Yeah, and not only that, he's going to need reinforcements. And see, Steve had that forethought. That's why they wanted to kill him. That's why they put him in jail. That's why I joined, because I saw it right away. As soon as I heard Steve talk about it, I said, I know exactly. I'm just dialed right in. Not everybody's ready to make that concession, and people better get clear about that right now.
Well, that's why see, Mo, this is what it's all about. We're going around the state, and he's not taking a single concession or a back step on any issue. He'll take an insignificant person that comes up and says something dumb, and he'll carpet bomb him, Satanist. It's just, and people don't understand.
I've seen his Twitter.
Yeah, there you go. But I want to say something about your dad, because I was first involved with your dad when he was in the administration in a professional level. And I'd been following him because of that. I really didn't know who he was before I got involved with him in the administration. And I started listening, and I told my father, who was a professor, that I was listening to Steve Bannon. And my dad immediately said, he's an anti-Semite. I said, why would you say that? Have you ever watched him? Because I was watching him. And I didn't read any anti-Semite. I read intellectual of the highest.
He actually said, I'm a Zionist. I'm a proud Zionist.
And then, right.
It's crazy.
And then this is the depth of this thing. Now, here in Minnesota, this state is, and I got involved in politics after that last election in 2020 because I've been watching your father and watching Dan Schultz and your dad, and I freaked out because I knew what this meant. And I said, I'm getting involved. And then I met Royce in 2022, and in 4 years of us being active here, this state is completely different. Now, there's other patriotic Minnesotans, a handful, 20 maybe, that we were linked up with now. And there's tens of thousands that are out there that need a leader and need organization. But your father lit a spark in both of us that is really quite effective in Minnesota.
Yeah.
And it's going on in every state.
A sort of perform miracle in its own right.
Because the intellectual, for those of us that are intellectuals that are
Spirit
educated,
is a matter of the intellect.
It was a great argument to, and just couldn't not watch it every day. I went through 2 years, I couldn't miss an episode.
Yeah.
And so now I'm too busy to watch because I'm making my own episodes.
What was it like for you do you remember when the first War Room pandemic hit? I mean, it was War Room pandemic.
It was War Room impeachment first.
War Room impeachment was first, right? And then the pandemic hit. That's right. I started watching when it was the impeachment. And then pandemic hit. And I got to be honest, look, impeachment was great. But when pandemic hit.
Oh, it went next level.
Oh, the whole show went next level. And they were coming in with those sound bites in the intro, and it was Fauci. And when the Fauci sound bite, every single, and Steve is a master. Steve is a straight up master. And I because I know him, I'm in the green room. And I'm hearing him quarterbacking, right? Because, you wouldn't hear that if you're not in part of the show. But he's quarterbacking. You pull this up. No, we're going straight to this. This is the code over. Blah, 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 blah. And when I went to the office there in D.C., the War Room in D.C., I told Mo, I said, yeah, I got OCD. You see how my office is. I mean, there's nothing out of place in here. Steve's got 1 million books and papers, and he's just, here, it's like a mad genius, right? So, But when pandemic, what was it like in those earliest days of War Room? As a CEO, what do you remember about those earliest days?
So actually, when War Room impeachment and pandemic were going on, I wasn't part of War Room. I was in the Army, and then I got out, and I actually got out because the Army wanted to move me again, and I was like, I am not moving for the 10th time in almost 9 years. Like, this is not happening, and I wanted to settle down, have a family, which neither one of those have still happened since I got out, but what it is. And my dad wanted me to start working with him. And I was like, no, that's your thing. Politics is your thing, not really mine. And then COVID hit. And I actually got out and applied to nursing school. And then when COVID hit, I was like, no, I don't want to go to nursing school. Right. I want to get involved in politics because what's going on is not right. Like, this does not smell right. This does not look right, sound right. And the company I was working for was a logistics company, and they were trying to fire me because I would not get vaccinated, but they legally couldn't go after me because I had a medical exemption, despite my views on the vaccine. So they were trying to find any reason to fire me, and I called my dad up, and I'm like, I think they're trying to fire me for logging on 5 minutes late twice. And he said, well, let's sit down and talk. And at my grandpa's kitchen table, we hashed out me working for War Room. But right when I came on, it was towards the end of pandemic. So it was about 21. And then we started going into War Room. But War Room called what happened months before anyone else did.
I know. I know. It just had that. It to this day. I mean, it just has that clairvoyance to it. You know, right up to this latest assassination attempt. But what do you what's the crazy war room stories from when you first started? I mean, what was that rise like? Like just hearing about how big the war room was becoming. Because now I think War Room is the #1 conservative show on Apple, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's #1 podcast on Apple.
It is.
What does it rank of all the podcasts on Apple? I think at one
It
point,
depends daily, but it's usually within the top 10
the top 10, yeah.
political podcasts.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Huge.
And it's usually us and every liberal podcast, top
It's the
podcast
top
you can think.
conservative podcast
Yeah.
by
But
landslide.
the ones that are usually around us are extremely liberal podcasts.
And before this, I mean, Steve, you know, people knew who Steve was,
Mm-hmm.
right? He was a known figure, but nothing like what's happened since the War Room is in. So what was it like when you getting those calls like,
I mean,
your dad is getting crazy, crazy famous. This is what he's saying. He's predicting this stuff ahead of time. What are the personal calls like from friends and people like, dude, your dad is, because I know my people, even to this day, that, you know, there are people who hit me and go, you know, you're palling around with Steve Bannon. I'm like, dude, if you don't shut your fucking mouth, you don't know shit about Steve. You know what I'm saying? That's just how I talk,
Yeah.
though. That's how we talk. You know,
Yeah.
shut your fucking mouth. You don't know shit about Steve. I'm going to send you this link right now to this PBS documentary. You watch it. And if you don't like him, when you call me back, you watch it. If you don't like him, call me back. If you don't watch it, go to hell. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of what it, but you know, what is that like? Just that rise of Steve's profile, publicity, and what people, how they view him, and what you were hearing along the way.
I mean, some people I went to college with have reached out in shock because they saw my dad at volleyball games and they didn't realize that man that they saw at my volleyball games is the same man that's doing so much to save our country. So just hearing messages from them honestly melts my heart. But it's people like in the posse that come up to me that say that, you know, back in 2020 or 2021, they didn't know what to do. So someone else shared this podcast with them and it helped them figure out what to do and get involved. And they wouldn't be where they are without my dad. Is that those are real, not that those other ones don't mean
Right.
as much to me, but it's that people got involved and are helping do their part to save this country because of my dad. That really just proves to me how much of a great person he is and how much love he has for this country. And I mean, I get attacked by the left for this, but he's always been my hero and he will always be my hero because not only because he's my father, but because of what he's doing to save this country.
Yeah. And you know, it's the strangest, isn't it strange to you? The other thing that really drew me to Steve was how the left or the mainstream media that leans way left, how much respect and almost admiration they show for Steve's pedigree. You know, and then that's why I said that I know that they're going after him purely on ideological and intellectual basis, not because he's a real danger. You know what I mean? I mean, he's dangerous to them intellectually and politically, but he's not a knuckle up guy. He's just not even. That's not.
Threat.
Yeah, he's not even. That's not even his bravado. But they all show him this grace intellectually, which is weird. I mean, like all of them: Morning Mika, you know, Joe. Bill Maher, you know, pick one, any of them. They're all like, yeah, Steve Bannon is a brilliant guy, but,
Yeah.
and I'm like, wait, what do you mean, but what? You know, what has that been like to just see how he's, you know, drugged through the mud, but in such a weird way? Like, you're saying my dad is a brilliant guy. What has he said that's wrong? What has he said about the working class? I mean, we know the big ones. You know, the big ones are, you're an election denier, you know, you're a vaccine conspiracy theorist, you're a, you know, China hog. You know, we know those ones. Those ones are clear politically.
Nationalism is, I think, the core underlying terror
rejection
that they have
of Steve.
Their greatest, why they're really trying to undermine him. Because I tried this.
But even that, and even that's a bullshit story.
Why?
Because he from the very beginning he said that this is an inclusive economic nationalist movement. That it doesn't care about your race, color, or creed.
It's the word nationalism.
Just in general.
Just in general.
Well, then that just makes them globalist fucking scumbags.
There you go.
You know, it's just what's your feel on it?
What do you think? You think I got it?
I think you did.
Yeah.
And I think also not that they attack him for those things, but when they call him anti-Semitic and a racist.
Right.
That's what infuriates me.
Yeah, you got the HEBROES here, right?
Yeah.
Now. The black and the Jew here.
We're running cover all the time now.
Yeah, get the fuck out of here, right?
I mean, because that just, if they truly knew my dad, they would know that those things are the furthest things from the truth.
Right.
So they can attack him for anything else. Those are the two things that bother me.
We're going through that right here in time.
Because you're I know few people in your family. And shout out to the great Sean Bannon as well. I'm sure he might be tuning in and getting a piece of, if he's not busy up to his eyeballs. But I mean, just not a racist bone or bigoted bone in this family's body. And what's scary and what disappoints me the most from the mainstream media, if we're gonna have a war, we can have a war, an information war. I get it. But they're really doing black people and Jews a great disservice, because you and I and Steve know there are people further to the right, much further to the right, quote unquote, because even the left-right thing, I don't even like that paradigm, but by their standards, there are people much further to the right that don't like Steve because they think he's too tolerable to a bigger tent of economic nationalism. And I see it all the time. I mean, like, for example, Fuentes. Like, I've heard of and seen Fuentes go after Steve and be like, yeah, but you're letting too many black people on your show. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's out there. And they know that's out there. So for them to clump Steve in with those people and treat them all like it's one group.
They're using those people.
They're using
them. And we got the very same thing going on here. Very same thing going on for him. They are broad brushing him as an anti-Semite, and I'm working against this. The Jewish community, people in the community. Why? Because he's just saying some very obvious things that nobody wants to hear.
Same that Steve would say, like Steve said after October 7th. Yeah, we're going to protect Israel, but nobody's getting our money now without conditions. Everything's conditional. There is no unconditional.
Because there's no money.
Yeah.
Because there's no money, but. Yeah, because
we're giving it to everyone.
Yeah, but also because we're out so far over our skis, it's very difficult to see who's who out there in the fog.
I saw him go on a great rant. He said, no one has been more supportive of the Jewish people than this show. It was a wonderful, wonderful rant. We're
going to play it at the end of this episode.
That's great. I took a group of Jewish people to meet Royce, and they asked him, do you support Israel? Yes.
Yeah.
Do you support the Jewish people? Yes, I support them militarily, financially, spiritually. If for no other reason, the enemies of Israel, the enemies are the enemies of the United States.
But for what reason?
Because the enemies of the United States and the enemies of Israel are the same.
Well, and for what reason though? Because they say it
right out of their mouth.
Yeah.
So I walked away.
It's not an esoteric love and friendship.
No, it's right out in the open.
Yeah, they say death to Israel, death to the West.
Right.
I live here. It's not complicated.
And so I walk away with this group of Jewish people, and I say, is that good enough for you? I don't believe him. You don't believe him? Do you listen to the words coming out of his mouth? What do you need? And that's where we're at, where people, faced with evidence, they are so interested in defending the status quo. And vis-a-vis Israel, the reason why it is for the Jewish people this way, why there's so much antagonism towards Steve Bannon or Royce White, they're terrified that if the U.S. military is redeployed, if those pre-deployments are moved out of the Baltic states, are moved out of Germany, that all of our security arrangements will be, forsaken, and Israel will be out there. I could speak in Yiddish, but I won't. But all alone to be slaughtered. So they are willing.
The first time we met, I told you that Israel's the linchpin of the New World Order.
Yeah, they're still getting off on that linchpin thing.
Well, you just explained it. You described it. You said it, not me.
I know.
You just said it.
But for the Jewish community to understand, and I said this in my own podcast, the Jews of this country in the 1960s led the anti-war movement. They led it. They were in the streets for civil rights, anti-war, and somehow In 40 years, those people grew up, turned into assholes. Whatever the U.S. military wants to do, they will support it. Whatever it does to this country, they will support, as long as Israel. So they never will take a look at any other political, they'll align with any political ideology that maintains this kind of neocon posture. And who are the primary neocons?
Karl Rove.
Kagans.
Yeah, Karl Rove.
The Kagans.
From?
What's Bill Kristol?
Bill Kristol, yeah.
Wolfowitz. There's the real dark master.
Yeah. I mean, these people, and none of these people like Steve.
No.
And then you come up and go, okay, and you say Jewish elites. Well, who are these people? They're Jewish elites, right?
Yeah.
And they're really promoting a worldwide architecture of military deployment that is, Israel's at the center of it. And now they're going to start calling me, pretty religious Jew, that I am an anti-Semite because I'm talking this way.
Whose father went to yeshiva.
Yeah, and these people.
I mean, that's how crazy it's going to get, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and they'll say that she's,
racist.
Well, not only racist, but she's anti-military for questioning, the pre-deployments and the pre-pilot. And then I'm whatever. I mean, I'm racist.
I've been called racist.
Yeah, well, we found a new one. We discovered a new one on the podcast because you cannot question the blacks or you're a racist. Yep. The Jews because you're an anti-Semite. Mm-hmm. Women because you're a misogynist. Yeah. The gay people because you're homophobe. But you know what the fifth one is?
Questioning women on the Secret Service
That's what I'm saying. You're a self-hating woman. That's what they say.
But the fifth one, the fifth group is you can't question the military or you're a traitor.
Yeah.
Right?
Identity politics.
Is that true or false?
Mm-hmm. I've been called that in my comments on Twitter.
Really?
When I call out the military. Mm-hmm. Or if I say, whenever I've been on the show,
West Point graduate,
and talking about the military, that Saturday show before my dad went in, and he asked me what I thought about Joe Biden's comments in the debate about the military and veterans.
Tell me, recant it here.
So he said that no service members were killed under his watch.
What?
Did we not forget the 13 that were murdered at Abbey Gate? There have also been others that have been killed since that, but he looked at his watch while the transfer cases, because they weren't actually caskets, when your remains are brought home, they're in transfer cases so they can be transferred into a casket. But the transfer cases were brought off the aircraft at Dover Air Force Base, and he looked at his watch each time each service member's remains were brought off the plane. I honestly believe he's so far gone, he doesn't remember that those 13 service members were murdered under his watch. But he said that. Then he said that he's done more for veterans than any other president, that all veterans love him. The one good thing that has happened under the Biden regime for veterans is signing into law the PACT Act, because at least for female service members, they're seeing a rise in certain cancers, and before you wouldn't be able to be tested for them unless you were over the age of 40, which I am not.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've been deployed to a location that had burn pits and were exposed to burn pits, you have a higher risk of developing certain cancers.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't qualify. I was exposed to burn pits while I was in Iraq, and I didn't qualify before this to be tested for those certain cancers. Now I do. So that's the one good thing I can say that he's done.
Yeah.
However, wait times at the VA have gone up by three times, 4 times what they were before. Under President Trump, I think they were like 2 months per specialty clinic. Now it's 12 plus months per specialty clinic. And you have more veterans because of the PACT Act trying to get care at VA facilities and less providers. You're not hiring. You're not using the budget correctly to hire more providers. So I went on that whole rant, kind of like this one, but more Steve Bannon-esque on the show. And I think he was shocked that I actually had a voice a little bit about it. But it's just,
well, I want to ask you to end too. I mean, you served your time in the military, and obviously we have this strange dichotomy of our part of the movement, our movement, explicitly wanting to be out of forever wars, wanting to shrink the scope of military. And I asked Joe last night up on stage, the fall of the Roman Empire and how the Roman Empire got caught with its pants down defending too many outposts beyond its means. And then the hordes came across into Rome and they couldn't defend home. And that's kind of what's happening here. It's what people have been cautioning for a long time. But at the same time, there's an entire flip side to this military narrative. And by my best estimation, the counterweight, the rightful counterweight of where our priority should be is the veterans and the crisis we see in the health care of the veterans. What do you see us being able to do there? Is it that if we didn't spend these resources being an advancing empire that we could better take care of the veterans and address some of that?
Well, first, I think we need to look into the VA budget and see what it's being allocated for within the VA system. I think that we need to focus on getting homeless veterans off the streets and not giving the money to illegal immigrants coming across the border. We also don't need to be getting involved in forever wars anymore. I think that when I went, I didn't question why I was going. I was trained at West Point. This is what you signed up for, basically, while we're in a time of war. And I thought, I'm serving my country. I'm defending our freedoms abroad so that people back here can have the freedom. Now I question it. Like, why did we get into these wars? But the elites in this country and the elites in Washington, most of them have not served. Most of those representatives, most of those senators have not served this country in the military. They don't understand what it means to have to leave your family and go over there time and time and time again. Now, I only went to Iraq once. Some of them don't even have kids that have gone over there. Like, I can't imagine what my dad had to go through when I told him that this is where I wanted to be buried if I was killed over there. Like, what parent wants to worry about their child, that they're going to come home in a transfer case, that they're not going to make it home? And I think that if we have more representatives that have served and senators that have served the military, they'd understand that we can't keep getting involved in these forever wars. And we also need to take care of those veterans within the VA system. I think the first thing should be mental health care.
Yeah.
Because DOD and the VA report that it's 22 veteran or military suicides a day, and it's up to 48.
It's up to 48? Since when?
2018. And DOD and the VA are reporting that it's down to like 13, I think.
Well, why are you saying there's a discrepancy? They're lying?
100% they're lying.
Wow.
Why would you want to admit that there are more veteran and military suicides?
Yeah.
That you're not taking care of those that have given their life and their safety time and time again. Like, they want to use you as a service member until you can't be used anymore, until you're broken, and then they throw you out like trash. And they don't respect you. They don't treat you well. They don't take care of you. Illegal immigrants get better health care than I do.
Yeah. And then they fly the flag and the anthem at the Super Bowl for everybody to feel like they're in on this, this love of country and patriotism, and they do it for the party as well. I mean, every time one of these posh, mealy-mouthed mainstream Republicans gets up and speaks before a Republican crowd, they say, "Will your veterans stand up?" I mean, it's just a slap in the face if you're going to spend so much money in the Ukraine that we can't take care of the veterans. I mean, don't get me started. I won't even get started. But seriously, you think it's up to 48? 48 a day?
Yeah. I think so. And well, I also have I think University of Alabama did research on it and found out that it was up to 48 veterans a day.
Wow.
Who were killing themselves.
Wow. Well, pardon shots here. What do you make of Steve and his situation? Obviously, he's doing well. He's comfortable, being looked after, working as usual. And his release date has been set yet, or
it has not. And working as in reading and staying involved, letting us know his thoughts about what's going on.
Yeah.
Not working as in running a company.
Right.
I'm running the company.
Yes, right.
I just want to make that very clear.
Yeah, you're the CEO.
I'm
you're
running
the boss.
the company.
Yes.
But he is staying busy in there. But just as an American, it infuriates me what he's going through, that he's a political prisoner. But as a daughter, to know that my dad's in there for doing nothing wrong just makes my blood boil.
I bet, yeah.
But his release date has not been set, but 4 months would be the end of October, beginning of November.
Yeah.
And I've been asked by liberal media, do I think that his voice is silenced by him being in there, is going to be silenced the entire 4 months? Do I think his voice is going to be loud when he comes out? And I'm like, no, his voice is not going to be silenced. Just because he's not behind the mic doesn't mean that his thoughts aren't going to get out there. You know, I'm able to communicate with him. So are some of the guest hosts that have been on the show. You know, we're in communication. Just because he's in there doesn't mean that his opinions and his thoughts aren't going to get out there. They're just going to sound a little bit different coming from me or someone else.
Yeah.
And I think that his voice is going to be amplified.
Yeah.
When he gets out. I think that the first show back will be record viewer numbers and download numbers. I did tell him that he will have to fight me for the mic when he gets out, but that honestly was a joke. He can have the mic.
Yeah, no, and I'm already seeing. I sent that clip to you that I posted of his 2020 PBS interview, and I can't tell you. First of all, it went viral right away on both Instagram, and it's the most seen thing that I've ever posted of Steve laying out what neo-feudalism is. And, you know, I can't tell you how many people I saw comment that said either I've never actually heard Steve speak and this is spot on, or I'm a Democrat, but this is so true. And that's the kind of transformative figure that Steve has been, and that's the type of transformative platform that War Room has been, and that's the type of transformative figure that you're in line to be, the heir apparent, Mo Bannon. And we thank you for being here. Parting shots, what should people be following? I mean, why do people need to ask her? Everybody's following you more than us, but go ahead anyway. It's a formality.
Really quickly, that tweet I actually sent to him, but since he doesn't have the internet, I had to copy and paste the tweet and then describe the video to him. So that was a pretty interesting email to him.
Yeah.
But he had some very nice comments to say back to you about that post. People need to watch the War Room. So 10 to 12, Monday through Friday, Eastern Standard Time, and 5 to 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Monday through Friday. Also on Saturday, 10 to 12. But share it with other people. More people need to open their eyes and ears to the truth. So being force multipliers, getting involved. We need to make sure that not only do we get Donald Trump elected in November, but all America First candidates, to include yourself, elected in November. So if that means being part of a phone bank, door knocking, any way you can get involved, physically get involved. I mean, it always is great to donate, but to get physically involved, I think, is a better thing. And do not write him letters while he's in prison. He wants us to be involved. So
that was a great thing that he said. I'm not reading them. Don't take your time. Go out and do something. Yep. We're a big believer. We're big believers here about people actually making their own lists of folks, talking to everybody. We have to be involved. We're doing it. In Minnesota, hey, Minnesota's going. We got to find some. We're really going up here.
We have to be force multipliers, and that's the way we do it.
It's great to meet you. I really, really enjoyed this. Is one of our best podcasts.
I told you.
Unbelievable.
Right.
Maybe you guys can get me back here in person.
We're gonna pull on your arm and try and get you back up here, or we'll Skype you in. We could Skype you in too. Whatever you want to do. You're the boss. You're the boss over there at War Room.
Yeah,
the big kahuna.
I did tell my boss, that I might come up here and help you with your primary. So
we'd love that. You're fantastic.
We'll see if you get me back next month.
Yeah, we'll love that. That'd be great. Well, thank you, Mo, for being here for this episode. We appreciate it.
Wonderful.
The great Professor Penn. Don't forget to tune into his podcast Tuesdays and Thursdays at 7:30 p.m. Central. You can also view him on my X most days when he doesn't go over the 2-hour limit, because we're constrained to a 2-hour limit, which we're trying to get to hear with
27
about
seconds.
50 seconds left. And we appreciate your viewership and listenership today and in the future. The fight continues. The people are coming. God bless Donald Trump. I said the other day, if he had been shot, violence would have ensued, and we most certainly would have been under martial law. So God is with us, Americans, and go forward. Go forward in faith and fight for freedom. Godspeed to you all. Free Steve Bannon.